mountain pose. Tadasana doesn't necessarily have to mean that your feet are together. Your feet can even be hips width apart. So you can even just play around with it here and just notice what feels a little bit more natural. And it's obvious that a wider stance will feel more stable. Just make sure you don't push your feet past the distance of your hips, the width of your hips, if you're going to take a wider stance. So however you're doing it, close your eyes for a moment, relax your arms down. And then just see if you can relax your shoulders. In one way, a really good important way that points to the interconnectedness of the body is that to relax your shoulders down, it's helpful to relax the tension in your face. And there's two main places that would hold tension in the head. One is the eyes, the visual system, the forehead, and the other one has to do with your mouth, which includes both your lips, your tongue, and even your throat. So as you let your face and your head relax, see how that imparts a little bit more ease to your shoulders. And if you naturally let your shoulders slide down off your ears, your chest, as a response to that, will naturally stand up. Come into contact with your feet and notice if you're standing more heavily on one heel or the other. And notice if you're tending to lean forward towards the balls of your feet, in which case you want to be able to tilt back to get at least 60% of your body weight to the heels, but even more would not be harmful. Now start to lift your toes, spread your toes. Open your eyes just ever so gently, just enough to be able to see the detail around you. And then you're going to take your arms behind your back, hold your opposite elbows. And then if you haven't already, separate your feet to hips width. Take your time. And then keep your legs straight and strong, squeezing your quadriceps, your front thigh muscles start to bend forward, holding the opposite elbows firmly behind your back. If it's too much to get to the opposite elbows, you can always hold somewhere like mid-forearm or 3/4 ways down the forearm. However limited your forward bend feels because your arms are behind your back, please make sure you don't take that as some kind of a demerit against the depth and sophistication of your own practice, of your own capabilities. And what we're going to start with here, what we're starting with is just a little bit more of a protracted forward bend, what helps us introduce a little bit better how the quadriceps, those front thigh muscles, start to inform the actual full emergent pose that we know as this Uttanasana, this forward bend. So let your head relax, let your neck relax, and just keep enough tension in your fingertips to hold where you're holding on the forearms. Good, let's take one more deep breath out. And then use your legs, push in with your feet, inhale, stand up. And then let your arms go. And now we'll just do this with one arm at a time. Take your left arm out to the side and internally rotate the entire left arm so that your shoulder kind of rolls over your chest a bit. And once you get to the maximum of that internal rotation, start to bend your elbow and aim your hand, your left fingertips, towards your upper back, even towards the head. Okay? And then once you get that, lift your right arm up. Make sure that your right palm is facing back, elevate your shoulder blade. And once you get your shoulder blade almost like to the level of your neck or your ears, then bend the right elbow and reach back. And if for now you can't quite get to the fingers, that's fine. Just kind of see where your hands naturally stop. Keep your legs as they are, lift your toes, and again, bend forward, maybe a little bit more slowly this time, so you can feel what's going on in the left shoulder. And for sure, the left shoulder is going to be something, the part that's a little bit less welcome, at least for now, of this movement, and even more so when you couple it with a forward bend. Now, if you do have a grasp of at least one pair of fingers, then try to keep the clenching, the squeezing or pulling of those fingertips a little bit more reinforced, so that the entire time you're attempting really to just curl your fingers further and further over each other, so you can kind of start to overlap your palms and eventually your fists. Keep your legs straight, keep the quadriceps engaged. Maybe even closing the eyes for the last 3 breaths. Slant yourself a little bit more forward, tilt yourself forward, so you can really invest in feeling with the balls of your toes what they do and how they feel when you're presenting most of your body weight on. Keep your sitting bones reaching up. Take one more deep breath out. Good. Inhale, stand up. And then release the arms. Good. Rotate your right arm all the way in, so full internal rotation. Make sure again that your shoulder rolls over the chest. And once it gets to the maximum of that internal rotation, bend the elbow and start to reach your right fingertips as far as you can up your upper back to your neck. Lift your left arm up. Keep your left palm facing back and externally rotate this arm. So see how much further you can shine your palm back before you bend the elbow and reach the left fingers to the right. You might notice that this hand either gets a little bit closer or is a little bit further from the bottom fingertips. And again, if all you have is one fingertip, that's fine. If you don't have any fingertips, you can still keep your arms behind your back. Last one, lift the chest on the inhale, exhale, start to recontract your quadriceps as you bend forward. Picking up right where we left off, slant a little bit more body weight bearing to the base of your toes. And even more specifically, if you can get there, you have five balls, 5 roots of the toes there. Make sure that you're trying to slant more of your weight to the big toe mount, the big toe knuckle. Last 3 breaths here. If you do have, again, 1 or more fingertips grasped, remember, try to curl your hands over each other. Take this last full breath out. Keeping your hands behind your back. Inhale, use your legs to drive the torso back up to standing. And then release the left arm, release the right arm. Okay, and let's go right into our sun salutation. Inhale, lift your arms up on a big inhale. And as you exhale, fold forward. Still re-engineering your quadriceps to help you come down. Inhale, lengthen the torso. Exhale, plant your palms, step back. Okay, so stay here for about 5 breaths. Just invest a little bit more fortitude in the arms, spread your fingers wide, and get a little bit better relationship with your fingertips, especially the index and middle fingers and their knuckles. Drive those down into the ground and think about pushing away just from those 2 fingers. You can even include the 3rd finger of your thumb as the main basis of support for your wrists and your shoulders. Now, what I want to do today is a little bit of accentuated vinyasa between poses, so we'll get to try it out on this first one. As you exhale, lower down to chaturanga. Inhale, come up to upward dog. And now listen, from upward dog, just stay here for a couple of extra breaths. I want you to envision what we're going to do, and it's very simple. We're going to come back to downward dog, not yet, through the same avenue that we got to upward dog through. Okay, so you're going to go back to chaturanga and then press back to downward dog. Okay, so that's going to be our vinyasas for today. Remember, if you find your shoulders beginning to complain because of all the shoulder loading that we're doing, it's almost always the case that it's some inappropriate or dysfunctional patterns of movement in your hands and your wrists that are leading to unstable shoulders. It's almost never because the shoulder itself is causing the problem. The shoulder is just simply feeling the problem. The shoulder is exhibiting symptoms, but the symptoms originate elsewhere. On the next inhale, lift your heels. As you exhale, bend the knees, walk or step or hop. Inhale, lengthen, chest forward, sit bones back. Exhale, fold. Big inhale sweeps you all the way back up to standing. Try to let your legs lead the way. Very good. And then exhale, arms down. Inhale, arms up. Exhale, keep your toes spreading as you fold. And then inhale, lengthen. Exhale, step back. Take a little bit of a longer time to come down to your low plank. So you want to make sure that you get to the very epicenter of your exhale. Inhale, remember coming out of upward dog, go back to chaturanga, and from chaturanga, back to downward dog. And once you get to downward dog, watch out for keeping your hands wider than shoulder width. And I know this is instruction that we sometimes hear in the community, but for reasons that we just don't have the time to go into in an hour of a vinyasa practice, think of it this way. If your hands are set wider apart, that'll actually invest you in more internal rotation of the shoulders. When your arms are overhead though, as they are in downward dog, we cannot afford internal rotation. We have to keep exhibiting the skill of externally rotating the shoulders in order for the joint surfaces to be able to cooperate with each other better. Good, next inhale, lift your heels up. Exhale, bend the knees, walk, step or hop forward. And then when you get there, inhale right into half lift, nice long chest, long sitting bones, exhale, fold. And then on the next inhale, slowly come all the way up. Just make sure it takes no more than one inhale to do so. And exhale, arms down. Do one more. Big inhale, arms up, toes up. Exhale as you fold. Really reach deep into the tissue, the fabric of your quadriceps. Inhale, lengthen. Exhale, plant your palms, step back. Cycle through your vinyasa, and remember, the exit from upward dog is through chaturanga again before you get back to downward dog. Good, once you get to downward dog, relax your neck. Let your head hang. Let your face actually hang. If you relax your face, it does actually hang. Those of you that have ever had the experience of practicing on a yoga wall, where you can actually suspend yourself and be upside down without any effort, you can relax a lot better, and people always notice how different the actual structures of their face feel being upside down. How close is this to be? Okay. Next inhale, lift your heels up. Exhale, bend the knees, walk or step or hop forward. Inhale, lengthen. Exhale, fold. And a big sweeping inhale brings you all the way up to standing, arms overhead at the very top of the breath. And then exhale, arms come down. A modified second version of sun salutation. Start with Utkatasana, bend your knees on the inhale. Exhale, straighten your legs and fold. Inhale, lengthen. Exhale, step back and lower to low plank. As you get into the peak of your upward dog, exhale, come back to chaturanga before you get back to downward dog, and right away step your right foot forward. And instead of going into high lunge, you're going to step all the way forward so you're balancing on your right leg into a supported warrior three. Now let's just keep it supported for now. So hands ideally right below your shoulders. That means hands nowhere close to your bottom foot. But the top leg, you want the toes to point straight down, and also spread your toes. And if you look underneath you, if you can't really tell whether your toes are pointing straight down, you might be surprised. So what it actually requires is a good bit of internal rotation. So neutral isn't so much of a position, Neutral is more of an action. And now slowly open up to a balancing half moon. Good, you can keep your left hand on your left hip, or you can just go ahead and lift your left arm straight up. Now watch this. See how softly you can step this top foot back into triangle pose. And that all requires just better understanding of your front legs dynamics. Good, good triangle. On the next inhale, bring your left hand down as you lift your back heel and bend your front knee for a lunge. Inhale, lift your torso up to vertical for the full high lunge. Good, stay there for about 2 more breaths. Keep reigniting and cleaning the straightness of this back leg, you guys. Not this back leg, but your back leg. Okay, take a deep breath in, lift your arms one more time. Exhale, slowly come all the way down and take your vinyasa. Not forgetting about the chaturanga that you pass through after upward dog. Lovely. And when you get back to downward dog, step your left foot forward, starting with a hands down low lunge, which you then transmute to a balancing warrior 3. A hand supported warrior 3. Keep the toes pointing straight to the floor. And then if you, again, one thing you can see when you look down is whether or not your right heel is in line with your right hip. And it's better to have it a little bit higher, but as long as it's no lower than being in line with it, no lower than horizontal. Okay, now keep your left hand as is, start to open up to bouncing half moon. Lovely. Right hand can stay on the right hip or right arm can go up. Lift your right leg high, just don't mistake that for rotating your toes up vertically. And remember, it's all in the standing leg how you land. So measure your movement so that you step back exceptionally softly. So it's almost like you could barely tell when you step back. And once you get to this full triangle, we'll take an extra breath here. On the next inhale, bring your right hand down as you lift the back heel and bend the front knee, and then collect yourself into a full high lunge. And 2 extra breaths in high lunge. Keep magnifying the action, that request of contraction in your right glute. Keep the back leg sharp, 1 more breath in. And then exhale, place your hands, step your left leg back on the same exhalation. Lower through chaturanga. After upward dog, come back through chaturanga. You know, what vinyasa classes are really good for is obviously tiring us out, challenging us. And one thing you can remember is that when you get tired, you have to be more specific, you have to be a little bit more discerning about how to do things properly because it's easy to get hurt. And this kind of comes back to this thesis of movement, which is if you can do it when you're tired, then you can absolutely do it when you're not tired. So one way to create excellent movement habits is through this process of failure, of actually reaching exhaustion and attending to proper dynamics. Take a deep breath in, lift your heels up, exhale, bend the knees, walk, step, or hop forward. Inhale, lengthen the torso, exhale, fold. Bend your knees on the first side of the inhale for Utkatasana. Squeeze your thighs together. Arms up, and then exhale, straighten your legs, arms down. Let's do it one more time. Bend your knees, inhale. Straighten the knees, exhale, fold. Inhale, nice long torso creates big lungs. Exhale, step back to your chaturanga. Out of the upward dog, come back to chaturanga. And as soon as you get back to dog pose, step your right foot forward. Again, step forward into a finger-supported, hand-supported warrior 3, at least to start. And now let's place the left hand on the left hip while you're in warrior 3. But don't open up yet. Keep your body squared off to the floor. Keep your chest squared off. So all you have is your right hand and your right foot, your right leg. Slowly cycle open to balancing half moon. Lovely. Make sure that you don't keep your right hand too close to the foot. Now let's add one thing. Bend your top knee, aim your foot back behind you, and grab the top ankle with your left hand. Now you can do this two ways. You can just hold on to the ankle and try to re-straighten your leg, which is going to pull your shoulder back. So imagine you're not kicking your leg back behind you, but you're just trying to straighten your leg back to where it was already. So that'll have a tendency to pull more on the shoulder. The other thing you can do is actually try to kick your leg back behind you. Like if I was standing behind you, you'd actually try to kick me. So your left thigh is going already a little bit more into extension. Good, now release the top foot. Step back to Trikonasana. On the next inhale, bring your left hand down. Lift your back heel into high lunge. Front knee bends, torso lifts. Stay as vertical as you can, which is going to get a little bit more tenuous at the next option, next transition. Turn to the right, bring your arms parallel to the ground. Now there's a lot of moving pieces here, so it's not an easy pose to handle, even though it might look so. Use your left butt to keep angling your torso further and further back, but watch out for your front knee unbending. Now you're going to slowly retain the twist, bring your left hand down, and then tilt to the outer edge of your back foot and step yourself into side plank. There. Project your whole body away from the ground by impressing your left hand into the floor better. So your chest rotates up as equal, as an opposite to how your left hand places on the floor. Keep your right toes lifted, take one more deep breath in. And as you exhale, right hand comes down on the same breath that you come down to your low plank with. Coming out of upward dog, come back through low plank. And back to downward dog as you step your left foot forward for our last side. Step into hand supported warrior 3. This time, once you get your balance, place your right hand on your right hip, but don't open yet. Stay squared off to the mat with your entire front torso. Keep the right leg from over dropping. In keeping the right leg as much as you can at that same level, slowly open up to your balancing half moon. Once you get your hand on balancing half moon, again, bend the top knee and grab your right ankle with the right hand. So just like we said before, you can either try to kick with your right shin as if you're re-straightening your leg back to the half moon position, or you could just simply extend your hip by trying to kick your top thigh backwards. Carefully re-extend your right leg and slowly land back to triangle pose, Trikonasana. On the next inhale, bring your right hand down. Lift your right heel up, bend the front knee, come back into high lunge. Once you get to your fullest high lunge, watch the quality of your back leg as you now twist to the left. And just keep paying attention. What is the quality of the back leg? And I'm talking about the back leg because it really is like the engine of all these lunging and warrior poses. Maintain the twist in the torso, land your right hand on the mat. Once it gets there, tilt the outer edge of your right foot down and step your left leg on top of it for your side plank, Vashisthasana. It's up to you what you want to do with your top hand. Most people find it's easiest to extend it up because it kind of gives you a better sense of your center of gravity. But projecting your chest up by slamming, literally, your right hand down better. One more inhale. And as you exhale, bring your left hand down while lowering to your low plank. Coming out of upward dog, come back through chaturanga, the way that Michelle didn't, as you get back to downward dog. And then once you get to downward dog, it's been a while since we've been here, so close your eyes. And, we always have to contend with our habits when we practice. So without looking at the hands, notice if you reverted back to the habit of having a wide arm stance. And some of you in class today, I know you have a habit of bringing your feet too close together. So you want to switch those programs. It's better to keep the legs a little wider and the hands a little more narrow. So as you start to reconstitute your dog pose that way, you're going to notice some good changes occur. Okay, now from downward dog, we're not going to finish off the traditional way of doing salutation. Let's just step the right foot forward, right from there. Okay, and then come upright with your torso. This time, keep the right hand on your right hip crease, lift your left arm up. We usually set this up from a low lunge. So you're going to inhale, lengthen the torso. On the exhale, without doing a side bend, just start to twist to the right as you fold down on top of the leg. And whether right now it's your elbow on your thigh, where you can bring your hands together at your chest, or you're binding your left arm underneath the right leg, don't forget about the quality control of the back leg. This is your engine. If the back leg wanes, the whole pose has no hope, and it really almost kind of loses all of its benefits. If you happen to be binding, try to lift your torso off the front thigh while still keeping the arms reinforced. And if you have your hands together in prayer, then just watch if you're tending to side bend into the twist. So keep the left and right side of the torso clear and symmetrical. Take one more breath out. Good. Now release the hands. Keep your hands on the mat. Step your back foot up into Parsvottanasana. And you want to make sure that the back leg isn't too close. So in general, we keep it about 3 feet. 3 feet between the front heel and the back heel. Let me bring this back a little more. Watch the angle of the back foot. Make sure it's somewhere around 10 or 11 o'clock. Now, if doing it this way hurts your lower back, all you have to do is lift your back heel. And if it doesn't seem to take care of it, keep lifting the back heel more until it does. Otherwise, if you have your back heel down, actually try the opposite, which is lifting the toes and embedding the outer edge of the foot a little bit more. So last balancing pose, you're going to bend the front knee, come back to your balancing warrior 3. Keeping now just the left hand on the floor. You're going to place your right hand on your right hip. Begin to slowly press away from the ground with your left arm to keep sending and angling your chest up. And then when you're ready, lift your right arm up for this balancing warrior 3 while it's actually twisting, balancing half moon. Keep lifting your left leg up a little bit higher. Just make sure the knee stays more straight. Take this last breath. And then inhale, bring your right hand down, left leg back, right leg to follow. Take your vinyasa. And as much as you want to forget about doing the chaturanga after upward dog, do your best not to. And then step your left foot forward. Okay, now come forward into your balancing warrior 3. Good. Keep your right leg nice and lifted. Good. Make sure you extend out through the chest. Okay, now slowly step back into a lunge. Come up to vertical. Start with your left hand on your left hip, right arm up. Good. Keep your back leg nice and strong. Keep your front toes lifted. Take a big inhale, and as you exhale, start to twist to the left as you fold. Once your elbow gets to your front knee, see if you can slide that elbow a little bit further. And if you can't get the elbow further, then you can actually bind the right arm underneath the front leg. So if you're binding, try to imagine lifting your torso like if the action was actually to stand back up to being straight. So make sure that your arms are fighting against that, but your torso is attempting to lift. If you have your hands together, Watch out for the tempting side bend that usually pulls you into. All along the way though, it's the maintenance of the back leg that's kind of like paramount in these poses. Okay, now release the hands. Come back into your hand supported warrior 3. Okay, now left hand goes on your left hip. Begin to gently press away from the right arm and turn your chest to the left and start to even aim your nose up to the ceiling. And if you're ready to lift your left arm up, just make sure that you're trying to have your nose track the distance that your left arm covers. The back leg is going to feel heavier in a pose like this. You have to do a little bit extra work to make sure it doesn't drop. Left hand comes down. Step yourself back to Parsvottanasana. Make sure that you have a distance of about 3 feet between front and back heel. As I said before, back heel can lift if you have any low back aching. But if you have the back heel down, lift the toes and get a little better contact of the outer blade of this right foot. Okay, and then slowly coming out, step your left leg back, and then go through your vinyasa. Remember your chaturanga after upward dog. And then we'll settle into our downward dog for a couple of breaths. So we've got some good general movement going already. So now we can start to work on more specifics. So come down to child's pose actually. Yeah, let your head rest. And to get your head to actually rest and connect to the mat, you can separate your thighs. Because if your thighs are all the way together, then you're just gonna like press your ribs onto your legs, and that might not let your head come down. So if you separate your legs, then the outer ribs will fit just so nice and snugly right between your inner thighs, and your head will come down very easily. But we're gonna make sure to work on some shoulder positioning while we're doing this child's pose. So without taking the head off the ground, extend your hands out in front of you. And then just see if your elbows can be lifted while the head stays on the ground. If the elbows lifting takes your forehead off the mat and doesn't allow the entire weight of your skull to rest, pull a block or like a little towel if you have one near. Put that underneath your head because you want to be able to allow the full weight of the head to be supported. If it's not, it's going to pull the neck too hard anteriorly. There's some positions where we want to relax the neck and there's some that we don't want the neck to relax. Okay? And this is the position where we want it to relax. But because of the placement of the body, which is like this, horizontal, this isn't going to allow your neck to relax safely if your head is being lifted. So you can go a little further and stack yourself up on your fingertips. You can start like a little bit more shallow, where your palm's a little closer. And if you bring your fingertips closer together, that's going to lift your arms even higher. And that's going to challenge you more. And now notice if you're on your fingertips, how much of your head's weight is taken off the forehead. And try to engage your fingers pretty steadily into the floor. Like imagine you're trying to like scrub your fingers close together as you do this. So they're not passive at all. The information that is exhibited by your fingertips is actually commands that are issued all the way from your shoulder, the plexus, the neural plexus of your shoulder. So when you learn to control your hands with good dexterity, you're also learning shoulder skills. Okay, now release your arms down, slowly sit up. If you don't have 2 blocks near, get a couple blocks. You might only need 1, but get a couple just in case. And then we're going to start with a lunge. So step your right foot forward and left knee down. You want these or not? Okay, so how you want to set this low lunge up is to maximize the distance between the front foot and the back knee. And we really want to start to kind of gauge this or target at the distancing of the back knee. So how much further you can get your back knee from your front foot is what's going to lead to a little bit more success, let's say. So when you get that, then you take one block at this kind of tower setting, and you're going to place that underneath your right sitting bone. Some of you might be so close to the floor that even the tower setting props you up a little bit higher, in which case it's okay to rotate it down to the next level if that's too high for you. Good. Now with the back foot, with the back toes, you can keep them curled under, or you can keep them pointing like this. Just make sure if you keep them pointing, you're pressing the toenails into the mat. Okay? Lift your lower belly and start to really extend your chest, your whole upper body back away from the front leg. So here's what we'll try. Put your right hand on your right thigh with the fingers, right hand on the right thigh. Point your fingers a little bit more out from the body, so you're pushing away kind of like this. Yes. And then extend your left arm out to the left, kind of like what you would do in Warrior 2. But don't turn your arm back. Just reach it to the left first. Keep your palm a little bit more open towards the wall in front of you. So we start with the palm open, and now rotate your palm down towards the floor. Keep the fingers spread widely, and then see if you can rotate the palm to face back, so your thumb is facing down. Nice. Now, without turning the torso and chest, see how far you can bring your left arm back on its own, but continuously keep pressing away from your right leg with your right arm. Now, I know, again, this is a lot of moving pieces here, so we're just including some shoulder articulation while we're also working on our hip flexor line here on the left. Carefully place your left hand on your left thigh. It can be by the knee, it can be mid-thigh, it can even be on the glute if that's too far to reach. Now, I want you to try to recline backwards to rest on your left arm in some way. And your left arm is resting on your leg, so essentially you're resting on your left leg. Keep the lower belly lifted. Keep the right butt like a fist, like a bicep, clenched. Okay, and then release your hands back down to the mat. Let's go on side 2. Carefully change sides. And once you get your left foot forward, bring your right knee down. Maximize the distance between the front foot and the back knee. Again, take your block at whatever setting. For most of us, it's going to be the tall setting. Place that underneath your left sit bone. Rotate it down one level if that's too high. But you want to make sure that you're actually sitting well on your left sit bone, which means on the block. So the block takes away the element of having to balance laterally. Start with your left hand. Well, start with both hands actually on your front thigh. When our hip flexors get put under tension, they have this ability to pull that side of the pelvis back along with the line of tension. So if your right side of the pelvis is rotating a little bit too far back, if it's not almost perfectly squared off, try to pull your right side of the pelvis a little more forward. Good. Then take your right arm out to the side like we did before. Start with your palm open towards the front. Extend out from the shoulder, then rotate your palm down, and then rotate your palm back, and then just start to reach, without turning your torso, reach your right arm back behind you in a straight line, in a horizontal line. Keep pushing away from your front leg with your left hand. And keep reaching that right palm back. Keep reaching the right arm back. Keep reaching the right shoulder blade back. That's amazing. Great. And then slowly place your right hand on your right thigh. This time your fingers are going to face down. So fingertips on the right hand facing down towards like the heel direction. Hand is either by the knee, mid-thigh, or upper thigh and glute. Still keep pressing with your left arm. and lift your lower belly. So think about using the lift of your deep lower belly, of your pelvic floor, to give you a little bit more amplification of your upper torso, your upper back. This starts to counter our common slouching, slumping position, which is all the closing off of the chest, our respiratory center, as well as diminishing how our heart, cardiovascular system works, how our proprioception works, how our awareness works. Okay, now bring both hands down. Very nice. And then lay down on your belly for a moment. Okay, come up on your forearms. Bend your left knee. And then grab your foot from the inside like you're doing the standing dancer pose. Now be very careful when you do this. As you're going to try to pull your left heel towards your left butt, the unexpected, sneaky tendency is that your left thigh is going to start to slide out to the left. And we want to try to keep the left knee in line with the left hip as much as we can. So as you start to now pull your heel towards your bum, watch that lateral slide of your leg. And one thing you can do is what I did here. You can put a block against your outer left thigh so that you know your left thigh is sliding once you start really pushing the block around. And it's okay to touch the block. It's even okay for the block to slide, but if your block just gets pushed out of the way, you know your left thigh has wavered. So now continue pushing your left heel to your butt. If your heel and your butt actually meet, try to reach your heel towards the floor just on the outside of your hip. As you do this, engage your butt, and you can engage your butt in the spirit of lifting your left knee. So I know it sounds maybe a little bit confusing, but imagine if you could lift your entire left thigh, and you can only use your butt muscle to make that happen. That's really the only thing that will make a difference. Last 2 breaths like this. Good, and then release. Left leg back, bend your right knee. And again, if you want to try it, set the block on the outside of your right thigh from the start. Bend your right knee, grab your foot and ankle from the inside. And just start to pull your heel towards your bum. We want to protect the ankle, of course, so anytime you're pulling your foot in this direction and you're holding onto the toes, resist just with your toes that pushing of the foot. Good, now start to pull your heel in just a little bit further, and if your heel touches your glute, then start to slide your heel just to the outside of the glute, towards the floor. And whether or not your heel is touching the butt or not, again, let's see if we can recapitulate the previous action of lifting the right thigh up. Good. Engage your butt muscle, feed your pubic bone into the floor, and get a little bit more elevation with that right thigh. Good. 2 more breaths like this. Good. And then carefully release the foot. Nice work. Settle back onto your heels. And now we're going to keep opening the upper back and chest a little bit more with a pose called basically heart pose on a Hatasana. So you're going to come forward on all fours, starting with your hips right above the knees. Walk your hands forward to a maximum distance and keep looking forward out in front of you as you do this. And the more you look forward, the better the result will be. So once you can get your hands as far out as possible, this is going to start to allow your chest to kneel down to the floor. And the trick here in getting your upper back and chest down is right here in the hips. So controlling your pelvis, try to point your butt bone straight up. And the more vertically you can point them, the better this whole arc will come to place, where your chest can rest on the ground and your chin will be on the mat with your eyes looking forward towards the hands. But of course, you don't have to keep your eyes open. For the last 5 breaths, close them. If your teeth are clenching, at least notice it. If you can't do anything about it, at least just notice that that is the case. All right, and then slowly start to walk your hands in, or slide your hands in. Okay, now next thing I want you to do is find some wall space. We're going to workshop this last pose. So what I want you to do is take your yoga mat and slide it all the way up against the wall so that the edge of your mat goes up the wall and at least covers the baseboard there. Okay, so once you do that, you're going to take 2 blocks. The 2 blocks you used before, and you're going to place them just on the outer edges of that mat. And you can place them like that in the tall setting, or you can keep them in the short setting. And then go ahead and lay down on your back with your head facing the wall. Okay, so right now we're not going to use the blocks just quite yet. Lift your pelvis up once you come down. And let's just start with bridge pose. Now, when you do bridge pose, interlace your fingers behind you and get your shoulders a little bit more narrowed. And remember, part of narrowing your shoulders with your hands behind your back also has to do with bringing the shoulders away from the ears. And bridge pose really allows for that. Okay, keep your hips up in bridge pose. Now place your hands next to your ears. Keep your fingers facing away from center, and let's just try this first full back bend. Come to the crown of your head on the first inhale. If you need to make it a little lighter and easier, lift your heels first. But you can just stop right here where you're on the top of your head, and that's just fine enough, not a problem. If you want to try to push up a little bit higher, then see if you can straighten your arms. Keep your heels up for this first one. Your hands are on the mat, you're not touching the blocks. Now see how you're facing the wall? Try to use your legs to present your chest a little bit closer to the wall. So you're kicking away from the mat and you end up kicking your heart more forward. Nice. Okay, so that's kind of like the general detail or dynamics of this movement. Come on down, take a little break. Knees together, feet apart. Relax your eyes, relax your jaw. Relax your ears. Relax your hopes and dreams. Okay, now look at those blocks that you have there, and I want you to place them on their second level setting. Right, so the second tallest one, right there at the wall, and just make sure that the space between the blocks allows your head to slide through. So you're going to have to measure that, slide yourself up to the wall, make sure your whole head can fit in between them. So I'll use some other blocks to show you what's happening to Michelle right now, how she's setting herself up. All right, so you want the blocks like this, not like right against your face, but not too much distance. So you're framing your head with the blocks. All right, lift your pelvis up. Start with bridge again. Just bridge. Okay, now once you get your full bridge, let's start with the heels lifted again. Place your hands not on the blocks right now, but on the floor. On the floor next to your head, so that the wrists end up butting right up against the blocks. So I'll move actually the computer over a little bit closer, hopefully you can see. Okay, now come to the crown of your head, just like you did before, and see if you can arrange the hands a little bit better. Spread your fingers wider, make sure your fingers are facing away from center. And the other thing is try to get your forearm and wrist to be right in the middle of that block. Okay, then on the next inhale, come all the way up. Now, since your hands can't move any higher up, the only thing you can do, your only recourse, is to push your chest towards the wall without having your hands move. So this really starts to pull your shoulders into deeper flexion. But it all comes down to your legs. If you can step your feet in an inch or two or more, you get more leverage to try to press your chest close to the wall. See if you can at least touch the nose to the wall. If you can touch the nose, you might be able to eventually touch the chest. Press away from the floor, make sure that your entire spine is lifting up away from the hands. So try to slide up into your shoulder girdle. And then slowly come on down. And then between this, after this pose, close your eyes, let your knees come together, let your face and your jaw relax. And you know, it's not an easy thing to get this movement pattern of your shoulder flexion because there's two big things fighting it. Your lats and a part of your chest that I've talked about before called the pec minor. The pec minor is a stabilizing muscle. So stabilizing muscles are very difficult to reorient to another movement pattern. If they have a habit, they love that habit. They just hold on to it for dear life. And you have to really stay patient to break that habit. Okay, and maybe watch the next one before you try it. So Michelle's gonna come up to bridge again. And then from bridge, she's going to set herself up for Urdhva Dhanurasana. Okay, but before she comes all the way up, she's going to stop at the setup. She's going to interlace her hands behind her head, a la Shirshasana. But when you do this, make sure that your elbows are now where your hands were. So slide yourself close to the wall. So by the time you tie your hands back, your elbows are pinned against the blocks. Good. And then as you walk your feet in, same as before, as you start to push with your legs, you have to lift your head off the floor for this, so just your forearms are down. As you push with your legs, you're going to notice how differently your chest starts to present to the wall, because now you've taken the element of your elbow bending out of the picture. So now it's just purely in the shoulders. And then once you get there, take about 5 to 10 breaths. 10 breaths if you're really feeling spunky. What's the opposite of spunky? If you're the opposite of spunky, take 5 breaths. And when you come out, knees together, feet wide. So how back bends work, especially when you're on the ground like this, is if your hands are going higher up, if your hands are above the level of your feet, you're going to target the back bend more in your upper back. If your feet are higher than your hands, you're going to target the back bend into your lower back. So I want to stay with the upper back and the whole shoulder compartment today. So watch the next thing that you do. Michelle is our gracious, sacrificey. So come up to bridge, then come up to Urdhva, or come up to the setup of the full back bend. And so here's the next transition, check it out. Good. Then I'm going to have her move her whole body closer so her face is closer to that gap between the blocks. And then she's going to step one hand at a time on top of the blocks. Yeah, if you have a baseboard there, just watch how the block kind of bounces. It should still be pretty steady. And then using your legs and your arms, push yourself, nice, all the way up. And then you really have to step your feet in And kicking away with your legs, start to smush your face into the wall and your chest. But eventually, when you get as far as you can with this, you're going to have to look straight down in order to get your throat, your chin against the wall and have your chest touch. So when your hands are elevated, like I was talking about, that targets your upper back and shoulders more. And when you come out, you have to be careful how you step down, one hand at a time. Yes, beautiful. And then knees together, feet wide. So try that out. If that feels like too far, repeat any one of the previous back bend variations that we did, and then we'll end it at that. Just give yourself plenty of time to rest when you're finally down. Yeah, Elise, good. Keep stepping your feet in, Elise. Step your feet closer. Closer to your hands. You can go to whatever you want to now. Hug your legs in first. Yeah, Christine, good. Good, Christine. Straighten your elbows more if you can, and give a little bit more kick of the legs. That's awesome. Keep kicking. And then once you come down, you guys, hug your legs into the chest. Make sure that your thighs have a nice big split between them. And just hold your legs there. You don't have to hug that deep. You just kind of like hold your legs passively in place so we can start to now open up, flex all the part of the back of the body that we were just contracting for those back bends. You know, and I tend to aim more classes towards back bends because back bends is where we need to stay in order not to keep reducing the structure of the body into the aging cycle. Because as we know, as we age, we tend to shrivel and curl over until we end up in the earth. And this is how Mr. Agar actually taught, is that your progression in yoga should actually be slanted more towards back bending. And I think there's a lot of wisdom in that. From the leg hug, let's do a regular supine twist. And if you have another pose that you want to finish with, you're welcome to do this for the last minute. You're going to cross for the twist, your right thigh over your left thigh, roll both thighs and knees over to the left until your top knee is touching. And this is the thing that's usually missed in a lot of these supine twists, is the imperative of making sure the legs are in contact with the ground. Whatever else that means for the rest of the body's twist, you cannot let the legs lift or move. And the reason for that is that if your knees just kind of float and move around, you're going to miss the opportunity to get some extra rotation in the part of your spine that was missing it, or that could have had. Every once in a while, see, you can maybe lift your head, turn your chin a little bit more. According to the modern medical standards of physical therapy, a healthy rotation of the neck would be about 80 degrees of rotation to each side. Now think about that, 80 degrees of rotation. That's 10 degrees shy of a full right angle. So you'll know that if your chin and your head can go past that, you're a little bit too much on the flexible side, and if you're not reaching 80 degrees, then you're a little bit too far back on the restricted end. Let's switch the legs, switch directions. Crossing the left thigh over the right, roll both legs over to the right. Make sure that your top knee is on the floor. And where your knees are with respect to the rest of your body also matters, so make sure your knees are in line to the hips, or maybe even in line to your belly button. Turn your head way left, extend your arm way to the left, and long deep breaths. So every inhale you take will tend to gently pull you out of the twist, and every exhale could probably melt you a little bit deeper. And you can really start to observe how the pulsing nature of your breath really interacts with the structure of the body. And so what this shows us, experientially and directly, is that the breath and the rest of our movements, the rest of our musculoskeletal frame, are not separable. We're actually one complete unit. And that's the overall lesson in yoga, is that nothing is actually separable. Our conscious, cognitive, mental life is compatible with our physical, structural life. Good. And then very gently, unless you need to stay on this side longer, pull yourself back up to your back to center, and then get your props ready for any kind of shavasana rest that you need. Make sure you have something to put over your eyes. Have something to put underneath your head. If you have a towel or a blanket, that might be very useful to prop your head up on. And whenever you put something over your eyes, as I mentioned before, it's a really good idea to make sure the entire eye socket area is covered. That way there's no hope of any light photons sneaking in. So that will then result in a good, full rest. The human visual system is one of the strongest in the entire animal kingdom, which is very surprising because we usually don't hear that about humans. We hear that our intelligence is usually the most prime example of our evolutionary gifts that we retain. But actually our visual system is incredibly sensitive. The only ones that have a better visual acuity are eagles, like predatory birds that can see mice from like 20 miles away, something ridiculous. But the human eye is not too far from that. That's the remarkable thing. We've evolved to use our vision to survive. And why we want to close it off in Shavasana is because the neurological network of our eyes goes through the fear processing centers of our brain, the amygdala. And so oftentimes, visual forms will trigger fear responses subconsciously to where we might not even notice it. So if you just shut that off, you'll avoid the whole potential of a stress mess on your hands while you're resting. Take all the time you need here. Remember to always take it slow when you move out of Shavasana. No jumping out of Shavasana. Only jumping in is allowed. Thank you for joining us today. And I will see you soon. Much love. Namaste.